When a leader as legendary as Moses dies, you'd expect a period of quiet, of transition. But that is not what happened. Not at all. The moment he was gone, a series of absolutely unprecedented events kicked off, and they changed everything. So, let's dive right into the 7 things that happened right after Moses.
So the story kicks off with this incredible, almost secret scene. The second Moses takes his last breath, a war literally breaks out in the spiritual realm. We're told the archangel Michael and Satan himself are in a cosmic tug-of-war over the prophet's body. It gets so intense that God has to step in, hiding the body so well that, to this day, nobody has a clue where it is.
And while all of that is going on up there, the situation down on Earth is just as dangerous. You've got 2 million people just camped out. They're heartbroken over the only leader they've ever known, and now they're completely rudderless. Worse, they are sitting ducks for any enemy who wants to take a shot.
The entire nation is just frozen, and you can bet their enemies are watching, licking their chops. If you were ever going to strike, this would be the moment. So the big question hanging in the air is, what on earth happens now?
Well, what happens next is this rapid-fire chain reaction. 7 things that were totally unthinkable while Moses was still around, and they all go down in just a handful of days. It was a week that basically reshaped a nation's destiny. Let's break them down.
All right, first up, the succession plan. So after a month of mourning, God finally speaks. But he doesn't go through a priest, he doesn't send an angel. Nope, he speaks straight to Joshua. And let me tell you, the handover is blunt.
Just listen to these words. There's no "I'm sorry for your loss," no pep talk. It's just a cold, hard fact in an immediate order. Moses, my servant, is dead. Now therefore, arise. That's it. That's divine succession. There's no transition team, no 2-week grace period. One leader's in the ground, the next one gets his marching orders. Period.
But here's where you see the human side of it all. Joshua was absolutely terrified. I mean, think about it. For 40 years, he's been Moses' right-hand man. He saw the Red Sea part. He knew he couldn't do that, and the text gives us this incredible clue into his mindset. In just a few short verses, God has to tell him, be strong and courageous 3 separate times. Think about that. The creator of the universe had to repeat himself. That's how scared Joshua was.
So, what's Joshua's very first move as the new leader? He does something that sounds completely bonkers. He sends his officers out with this unbelievable command. Get your stuff ready. In 3 days, we're crossing the Jordan River.
72 hours. That's it. To get an entire nation of 2 million men, women, and children, plus all their livestock, ready to cross a flooding river. It's a logistical nightmare. But you see, the deadline wasn't really about logistics. It was about creating something that fear hates, momentum. Once he started that clock, there was no time for second guessing. There was no turning back. It forced everyone to move forward.
Okay, so before they actually cross, Joshua sends a couple of spies into the walled city of Jericho. They end up hiding out at the home of a prostitute named Rahab, and what they learn from her is worth more than any military intel they could have possibly gathered.
Rahab tells them this.
And get this, she's talking about the parting of the Red Sea, an event that happened 40 years ago. But she says the people of Jericho are still so freaked out by that story that their hearts melted. They have zero courage left. So the spies realize, oh my gosh, the enemy is already beaten in their own heads.
Now, let's get to the river crossing itself. The Bible is super specific here. The Jordan River was at flood stage. This wasn't a gentle stream. It was a raging, violent torrent. So you have to ask, why would God pick the most dangerous, most impossible time to perform this miracle?
Well, the timing was pure genius. This wasn't for convenience, it was psychological warfare. The moment the priest's feet touched that raging water, the river just stopped. It piled up in a heap miles away. Now imagine you're one of the enemy kings watching from your fortress. You just saw your single greatest natural defense disappear. Whatever fight you had left in you probably vanished right then and there.
So after they've crossed, Joshua's by himself, probably scouting out Jericho, trying to figure out how to attack. He looks up, and there's a man standing there with a sword drawn. And this one conversation is about to change how Joshua sees this entire war.
Joshua, being a military guy, asks the obvious question. It's a simple black and white question, right? Whose side are you on? Are you with us or are you with them?
The warrior's answer is just one word, and it completely shatters Joshua's entire way of thinking. He just says,
no. Not, I'm with you. Not, I'm against you. Just, no.
And then he drops the bomb. I am the commander of the army of the Lord. And in that one sentence, Joshua gets it. He thought he was the general, and God was his powerful ally, but he had it backward. God had his own army. He was the real commander. And Israel wasn't leading the charge. They were just being invited to join a battle that heaven was already fighting. This wasn't their war to win. It was God's.
So these last two events are really about marking a huge shift. They're like these giant signposts saying that the whole era of wandering in the desert is over. A new chapter of conquest, of partnership is beginning.
God tells them to build 2 memorials. The first one is public, 12 big stones on the riverbank, so that years from now kids will see them and ask, hey, what are those about? And the story can be told again. But then they place a second set of 12 stones in the middle of the river bed, which are immediately covered by the water again. It's this beautiful idea that some acts of faith are recorded and remembered, even if no other person ever sees them.
And then comes maybe the most jarring change of all. For 40 years, that's over 14,000 days in a row, Israel woke up and found this miraculous bread, manna, just lying on the ground. But the day after they finally ate food from the Promised Land, they woke up and, for the first time, there was nothing. This wasn't God abandoning them. This was graduation. It was God saying, okay, you're not helpless kids anymore. This land is yours. Now go work it.
You know, when you zoom out and look at all this, you see this incredible symbolic pattern. You have Moses, who represents the law. He could lead the people right up to the edge of the Promised Land, but he himself couldn't go in. It took Joshua, whose name in Hebrew is Yeshua, the exact same name as Jesus, to actually lead them across the border and into that rest. It's this picture that the law can show you the promise, but it takes a new kind of leadership to actually get you there.
So what does this all really mean? It means that Moses' death wasn't a roadblock to God's plan. It was God's plan. It teaches this really profound lesson. No single person is indispensable. The work, the mission, it's always bigger than any one of us. Being faithful just means playing your part with everything you've got, even if you don't get to see how the story ends.
And that really brings this whole story right back to us, doesn't it? It leaves us with this challenge. What's the promise in your life that feels impossible? What's the raging Jordan River you're standing in front of? Just remember, Joshua was terrified too, but he still took that first step, because the water doesn't part until your feet get wet.